Super. Thanks so much, Claire. Now we'll move on to our final question, which came from Stina. And Stina is wondering whether we plan to commercialize the protein fibre products. And is there anything similar on the open market in any European country? Now, I'm not sure whether Stephanie is online still with us, but perhaps Katie or Anna, would you like to answer that?
I think Linda actually said
Linda, yeah.
she would. Sorry.
I think Stephanie might be best placed to answer that one.
Yeah, she's there.
Sorry.
Thank you, Stephanie.
It just took a little longer to find the microphone. Yes, I think there might be an open market, but it's still a long way to go. So we will need to identify the right companies which might be open for those kind of products, and we have not succeeded yet, but I think we are still working on it.
Okay, super. Thank you so much, Stephanie. Okay, that's all the questions that came from the Q&A box. I'm not sure whether the panel have any other questions to their colleagues. And if not, I might just move on to the final phase of the study, where we'll just do a wrap up essentially to think about what we've learned over the last, I guess, 5 years. Because when we started this study, of course, there was relatively little known in relation to appetite. And so the key learnings are their future perspectives. I hope you can see my slide there, can you? For us would have been, I mean, essentially this project has been very robust in addressing the knowledge gaps that we had in 2020, or indeed 2019, when we wrote this grant, in relation to one, not only malnutrition in older people, but also taking one step back, as in trying to identify those triggers which may be associated with anorexia of aging. And indeed, you know, how would we increase the intake of protein in older people? Because at that time, we did not know whether there was going to be a satiating effect of increasing protein intake with respect to appetite in older people. And of course, subsequently, Katie's meta-analysis answered that question, and it demonstrated that there weren't differences. But what we tried to design at the outset was a very robust project which looked at all the different elements. And I think it's a lovely illustration of where you have a combination of the psychosocial determinants of both malnutrition and also appetite. And I think the lovely work that Laurie completed, you know, really illustrated how complex those issues are in relation to appetite loss in older people. And they work on very different pathways. And this was then very much validated by Mario Lane's work, using data from the LASA study, which again looked at the different domains which actually feed into appetite and the precedence to malnutrition in older people. And so from that psychosocial perspective, it just exemplifies how important that person-centered approach is needed. And from the biological perspective, we're also very interested in personalized approaches. But I think where we go with this information is very important. And maybe some of the audience would have some suggestions for us, because, you know, really now we know that this one-to-one interaction is very important, but from a public health nutrition and a prevention policy, that sort of one-to-one dietetic or healthcare interaction is not always possible. So there certainly is a need in terms of, you know, translating the findings that we have to groups who are developing policies relating to the whole area of malnutrition and indeed the prevention of malnutrition in older people. If I move on to the work that Stephanie's group developed with us, I think it can show that you can work very closely with food technologists and work together in terms of designing different protein or different amino acid combinations, wherein we can blend those different plant-based proteins in order to get a maximal amino acid complement, which would be nearly as good as, say, the gold standard, which would be whey in this situation. also, when we were putting this project together, we were very much focused on moving beyond the state of the art. And the state of the art at the time had very much just focused on whey proteins and only looked at amino acid supplementation. And the reason why we brought fibre into this was it was thought that we would not only address the issue that older people consume less fibre, but we were hoping that the actual physical impact of fibre would actually promote transit time in the gut and therefore may interact also with the whole mechanism of appetite. So that was quite interesting. Also, something which wasn't really teased out today was that that fibre element may also have an impact in relation to the gut microbiome. And again, that's very important. But essentially, it shows that you can design these projects. What was very interesting then was Dominique's work, which he completed in collaboration with Padua and also UCD. So the whole area of bioavailability of the products we tested certainly needs more investigation. I mean, there is a potential limitation, and that was very evident when you look at the amino acid curves, wherein almost 50% of those amino acids did not appear in the plasma. However, as Dominique alluded to, it's very important that, you know, we use further studies, for example, tracing studies, to provide clarity, because those amino acids may have either disappeared in terms of the splanchnic extraction, or indeed those amino acids may have remained in the gut per se. And if that is the case, that means that those amino acids would have continued on into the colon. And if that was the case, then there would be an increase in the number of proteolytic microbiome present in the gut, which is not necessarily a positive effect. But as Katie said, we have conducted microbiome research, and we would hope to understand whether the balance of the microbiome did change. So there will be more results arising from this study. And also, Dominique will have data in relation to the tracing studies he's been planning for some time. In relation to the intervention study, coming from a nutrition background, it was great to work with colleagues in the physical activity area, because we really learned that when you're doing physical activity intervention, you also have to have a pharmacological approach nearly, as in you have to provide the same dose of physical activity. And it clearly demonstrates the synergistic and the additive effects of both the dietary intervention and also the physical activity intervention. Now, linking back to work package 1, wherein both Mary-Elaine and Laura-Lee demonstrated the importance of social interaction. It is impossible for us now to retrospectively understand whether some of the potentially positive effects which we saw in the group who received the dietary intervention as well as the physical intervention was due to that intervention per se, or was it an indirect effect of the social interaction? The social interaction of those subjects who, you know, attended to the physical activity sessions, and because, you know, there is this circular effect. So I guess in terms of conclusion, it really is very important that holistic lifestyle interventions are rolled out in the future, and they really do take account of the psychosocial elements. Also, one of the recommendations was that we should develop psychoeducation to understand the importance of eating and under eating in older people. And it's only with these sort of multidisciplinary programs that we can bring this element. And it certainly brings a different perspective to personalized nutrition interventions. And I don't know whether any of the audience any other questions, and I'd be quite happy to take them. But essentially, I would like to very much thank all of the Appetite Consortium. And I would particularly like to thank Dorothee for, you know, leading the consortium, doing all the reports for us, making sure that all the work package leaders kept on track. And with that, I would very much like to thank Dorothee. And indeed, if there are any questions, I'm sure the panel or my colleagues will be well able to answer them. I don't know, Dorothee, whether you wanted the last word there.
Thank
We
you
don't have any
very much,
questions.
Helen, for your summary and wrap up. I don't see any questions. The last chance, last opportunity to ask questions. I think, yeah, it was a huge work over the last few years. We worked really hard, and I think we got a lot of new knowledge in the field, in the different work packages from different areas, different aspects of the topics. We increased our knowledge, but there's still also work to do. It's not everything finalized what we have planned at the beginning, and also there are additional questions emerging from that what we observed. So there's still a lot to do.
Great. Thank you, Dorothee. There are just a couple of congratulations and great work. So I think we've presented everything and perhaps answered the questions.
Okay. So thank you again all, the speakers for their presentations, but also the audience for being here and for contributing with your questions, which very much improved the webinar and our exchange. The webinar was recorded, and the video will be available online in the future. I'm not exactly sure where. I assume we will put it on the Appetite website and maybe also at the JPI website. But it will definitely be available to have another look at the details if you are interested again. So thank you very much again.
Thanks,
I
Dorothee.
now close the webinar